Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be filming another murder video. This time I'm taking it out of the Killer Book of Serial Killers. There's a book right here. It's written by Tom Philbin and Michael Philbin. It's a great book. I suggest it if you're into this type of thing. So today we're going to be covering the Hillside Strangler, so let me get into my trigger warning. Trigger warning. This video is going to contain some graphic details of strangulation and rape and mutilation of women committed by men that have issues with women. If those kinds of details are triggering to you, I suggest you go ahead and click off of this video and tune into some of my more milder content featured on other parts of my channel. With all of that said, let's get into today's video. So the Hillside Strangler is actually two people. It's Kenneth Bianchi and his cousin Angelo Buono Jr. These murders happened in Los Angeles, California between October 1977 and like February 1979, January 1979, somewhere around there. So let's talk about some terminology first. Mass murderers usually work alone. They usually have a singular event where they kill a lot of people in one instance. Serial killers generally work alone but can work in pairs. And serial killers kill multiple people, but they kill multiple people at multiple occasions with like a cooling off period in between the kills. So they may kill a person here, have a cooling off period, kill another person, have a cooling off period, kill another person. Then you have what's called team killers. Team killers can be mass murderers or serial killers. They are usually lovers, friends, or family members. There's a dominant person in that team killer scenario. There's a dominant personality. There's a more meek or milder personality. And either party by themselves probably would not be a killer, but you put the two together and then you have your killer combo. But once you put the two together and you separate the two, they would continue killing afterwards. So anyway, so that's our terminology. Let's get into who Kenneth Bianchi and Angelo Buono, I don't know how to say his last name, who these two people are. So Kenneth Bianchi was born in 1951. He often bragged about having a perfect childhood in Rochester, New York, in a clean residential neighborhood. The reality was he had a very troubled childhood with many trips to the reformatory. Psychiatrists detailed deep disturbances in his mother, even labeling her a psychopath. And she would scream at Bianchi and even punished him by forcing his hands onto the burner of stoves. From all accounts, Bianchi's father was not in the picture, and Bianchi also exhibited serial killer precursors such as bedwetting and cruelty toward animals. He once even killed a cat as a prank. Bianchi also idolized his cousin, who was Angelo Buono. So now we're going to talk about Angelo Buono. Angelo Buono was born in 1951. So he was the older of the two. Correction on that. Hold on a second. Bianchi was born in 1951. Angelo Buono was born in 1934. So he was the older of the two. He was the tougher of the two cousins. He was raised in LA. He was a macho tough guy. His mother was abusive, and Buono often referred to her as the cunt. And Buono was described as having a steel heart and a steel stomach. He worked as a car upholsterer, but then turned into a pimp, and had a habit of having a stable of beautiful young women, but he could only have sex with them either through oral sex or anal sex. He often would threaten them with, if they tried to leave, he would kill them, and they believed him. Bianchi moved out to LA in 1976 to be closer to Buono, and Bianchi started to be a pimp as well with his cousin. Both men displayed a cruelty toward the women that increased into murder, and that is where the Hillside Strangler murders started. The first victim was in October 1977. It was Yolanda Washington. She was 19 years old. She was a part-time prostitute. She was found near 6510 Forest Lawn Drive. Bianchi later described it as no big deal. Bianchi advised that he had sex with her, killed her in a car, and dumped her body, and he also said it was nothing to it. Washington's death did not cause much of a stir, mainly due to her line of work. And that happens a lot. A lot of serial killers will target prostitutes because it does not draw that much police scrutiny. There is not a big public outcry to find out who the murderer is or try to solve the crimes because they're prostitutes. Nobody really cares. It is kind of a hazard for the job, is there's going to be the potential for murder. So the second victim was October 31st, 1977 is when the body was discovered. And that was Judith Miller. She was 15 years old. She was a runaway. Her body was found at 2833 Alta Terrace in La Cresta. And she was the first to be killed using the Hillside Strangler modus operandi, or MO for short. She was killed in a car. Body was dumped from that car. She was tied to a chair. She was sodomized by animated and inanimated objects. She was strangled, and before death, she was forced to go to the bathroom so that when the muscles relaxed in death, nothing was released into the car. So that is the Hillside Strangler MO. That is play-by-play how it went down for each of the victims from victim number 2 to the end. So the third victim and the fourth victim occurred November 20th, 1977. That was Sonia Johnson, who was 14 years old, and Dolores Zapato, who was 12 years old. They were last seen near the Dodgers Stadium. Neither of them were prostitutes, and neither of them were runaways. Their bodies were found the same day in the 1500 block of Landa Street in Alasia Park. These two victims are what set off the alarm bells, because this is a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old. They were good kids by all accounts. They weren't runaways. They were just walking in the area, and they turned up missing. So everybody went mad. The fifth victim was Christina Wackler, who was 20 years old. She was found in the 4100 block of Ramones Way in Highland Park, and this is the one that confirmed they had a serial killer. Usually 3 victims in, that's when they say we have a serial killer. This time it took them 5 victims in, and then they're like, okay, we got a serial killer. Overnight, self-defense courses went crazy. People were constantly needing self-defense courses. Prostitutes started working in pairs. When one prostitute would get in the vehicle, the other prostitute was writing down the tag number and description of the person driving, the description of the vehicle, just in case that prostitute didn't come back. They had everything that they needed to turn into the police. People would not stop for officers for minor traffic offenses, just in case. That was the way that these people were snatching up people. Things went insane. A task force was immediately formed, and people were scared. Because you got to think, in the 60s and 70s, people were just coming down from the Manson family murders. There had been other serial killers that had operated in the area, and then boom, you have the Hillside Strangler. People were scared. Sixth victim, November 23rd, 1977. You have Jane Evelyn King, who was 28 years old. She was discovered in Los Feliz. The body was tossed from the southbound Golden Gate Freeway. The seventh victim was November 29th, 1977. You had Lauren Renee Wagler, who was 18 years old. She was found at 1217 Cliff Drive in Glasgow. The eighth victim, December 14th, 1977. Kimberly Diane Martin, 18 years old, found at 2006 North Alvarado in Echo Park. After this victim, it's like the killer took a break. It's holiday season. We're going to party it up for the holidays. No more victims, no more bodies, nothing. Ninth victim, February 17th, 1978. Cindy Lee Hudspeth. She was 20 years old. She was found in the trunk of a car. So now, all of a sudden, the bodies went from being just dumped on the side of the road to being hidden in the trunk of a car. The body, that immediately set off some bells, because that was a change in the MO, because the body was hidden but bore all of the other markings of the Hillside Strangler. Everything else was the same, but the body was hidden. At this point, the task force had 85 detectives who were working day and night, but they still had no leads. There were no more bodies in 1978. Wonder why? Usually serial killers don't take that big of a hiatus unless they go to jail or they change locations. So 2 victims were found in Washington. That was Karen Mandick and Diane Wilder. They were found in Mandick's trunk of her car. These victims led to Bianchi's name because Bianchi had hired Mandick to house sit for $100 an hour. Now you gotta think, this is in 1979. That was an exorbitant rate. I mean, that's an exorbitant rate now. Nobody's paying anybody $100 an hour in 2019, let alone in 1979. Bianchi was arrested, and links between Bianchi and other victims were discovered. So the 5th victim, Kristen Wackler, lived in the same building as Bianchi in Glendale. The 8th victim, Kimberly Martin, was last seen in the same building in Glendale. The 9th victim, Cindy Hudspeth, lived directly across the street from Bianchi. So he's tied to 3 of the victims from Los Angeles. Then he's also tied to one of the victims in Washington. So he's tied to 4 victims right now. Bianchi denied he was involved in any of the murders, but police did a search of his home in Washington and found a pubic hair that tied him to one of the girls. So, mental exams were ordered. Bianchi underwent 3 mental exams. 1 by the defense, 1 by the court, and 1 by the prosecution. During the first mental exam, Bianchi introduced a new persona that he called Steve Walker. Walker supposedly appeared when Bianchi was a child and was hiding from his mother. Walker was tough and strong. He was also cruel and unafraid. This is kind of like his Buono side of himself. Bianchi advised that he was not capable of murder, but advised that Walker was. Steve admitted to the murders, stating, "I killed those broads," referring to the 2 girls in Washington, "because I hate fucking cunts." Walker stated he killed the women in LA, and then he introduced a new, non-imaginary person into the mix, and that person was Angelo Buono, Bianchi's cousin. So, Bianchi got tied to the case because he'd hired one of the girls in Washington. Buono got tied to the case because Steve Walker, Bianchi's persona, tied him to the case. So, let's talk about a couple of things that were involved in this case before we get to the conclusion of this case. One is a victim that got away. A victim that got away. Bianchi and Buono liked to impersonate officers when they were in LA. That was kind of how they got a couple of their older victims that could drive. The duo would stop they would stop a lady and they would flash fake badges and stuff like that. So they stopped a lady in Hollywood and they asked for her ID. She provided her license with a photo. So she gave him her license, but she also gave him a picture. And she was Catherine Lore, the daughter of actor Peter Lore. The picture that she provided with her license was of her sitting on his lap. So the duo decided that they didn't want to cause any trouble by murdering a celebrity's daughter, so they let her go. And Catherine never knew how close to death she came until they were arrested and were going on trial. And then she remembered this duo of officers that had stopped her when they came on TV, being the serial killers that were killing all these girls around the time that she was stopped. So that is one celebrity that was tied to this case. Now let's talk about another celebrity that was tied to this case, and that is Anthony Kiedis. Anthony Kiedis is the singer and founding member of Red Hot Chili Peppers. And being a teenager in the 90s, I am and was a huge, huge Red Hot Chili Peppers fan. I still listen to Red Hot Chili Peppers now. I probably will until the day I die, but still. The lead singer and founding member of the Red Hot Chili Peppers was arrested in conjunction to the Hillside Strangler murders because he fit the description of the murderer. So Anthony Kiedis was arrested as the Hillside Strangler at one point in time for the murders because he fit the description. And if you look at Kenneth Bianchi and you look at Anthony Kiedis, they actually kind of look alike. So that is the 2 celebrities that were tied to the Hillside Strangler murders. Now moving on to the conclusion of this case. Kenneth Bianchi rolled over on Angelo Buono in exchange for a life sentence. It took 2 years for this case to come to trial. Now, they had no evidence on Angelo Buono except for Kenneth Bianchi. But they had evidence on Kenneth Bianchi because they had the pubic hair, they had his confession, they also had him tied to several of the women. So, both Buono and Bianchi received life sentences. A LA detective described Buono as one hard dude, a real throwback, We couldn't break him. Bianchi was exhausted. Bianchi has exhausted all of his appeals. He has also denounced his confession. He is serving a 100+ year sentence in Washington State Prison in Walla Walla, Washington. He now has found Jesus and believes that he has been wrongfully convicted of this. Buono, on the other hand, died of heart disease in September of 2002, so he is no longer walking the earth. But we still have Kenneth Bianchi up in Walla Walla, Washington. So that is going to be the end of the Hillside Strangler case. We've had 2 celebrities tied to this case, a lot of twists and turns, but it ended with these 2 men being convicted and arrested, convicted, and put in prison for it. One is now dead. One has found Jesus and is swearing that he was never a part of it. Let me know what you guys think. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, hit that bell so that you are notified every time I upload. Leave me a comment down below. If you have a case that you want me to cover, send it to me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or in my email. I will be more than happy to cover it. And if your case is selected for me to do a video on, I will shout you out in that video so that everybody knows that you did the investigative work behind that video. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for this video, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.